And the therapist was like, how do you function? I said, well, I tell stories. And that's why I don't go to therapy, because it's all through it's always there. It's right up in front and open about everything that I do. Everything is, I'm so embarrassing, it's pathetic. But I laugh at myself all the time. And I got very somber and sober, and I looked at her and I said, and life without stories is not life at all. There's no evidence that you live. And so again, through the camera, the stories come through.
Speaking of story, to coattail what the former nursing home nurse said earlier, I mean, who has a relationship with an entire nursing home staff for 5 years?
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
has that.
even the nurses are coming and going. Even the nurses themselves, we lost a couple of them. Lucky, remember Lucky?
Yeah.
I remember Lucky. Yeah, they didn't even last. Matter of fact, Lucky was reprimanded about something and then cut loose. You're right. It's a very transient environment.
So, that could be a huge potential thing that you talk about in an
That's a very good point.
autobiography
Yeah.
for, when you as an artist read the autobiography of another artist, you want to learn how they did what they did, right?
Yeah, no, and what brings, again, this one gentleman we talked about, the milk all over, this guy was born in Nigeria, but he was educated in Paris, I think. And then, here he is in this little, sleepy town of Marlborough, Massachusetts, feeding pablum, and he felt that he was on this earth to help people. And that brought tears to my eyes, that he could have gone anywhere on this earth, he ended up in Marlborough, Massachusetts, to do this. I'm fascinated by that. I really am.
You mentioned the Haitian nurses. Were they Haitian?
There was
a mixture of Nigerian and
there was a Nigerian, and then there was Lucky. Lucky was Brazilian, I think. Does that ring a bell? Lucky was
Brazilian.
Brazilian.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
Because if you investigate the nursing home staff, and they're Haitian, the Haitian people bring the whole voodoo
Right.
way to heal.
Yeah.
They'll stand over a sick person and start screaming those spirits out of this sick person.
It sounds like you witnessed that. When you were down, you went down to, with the great earthquake
Right.
that happened.
But huge opportunity to
Yeah.
talk about those healthcare people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know. I can't go back. I have to go. The other thing I mentioned over and over and over, time sanitizes. So it's how I remember things. And I don't think that hurts to go down a particular route. Oh, so early on when Jean was in the nursing home, there's this therapy group. And did you ever go to any of those therapy groups? Did you go to a therapy group?
Counseling.
Yeah, the counseling thing.
Yeah.
There, did you go? Okay, I don't remember going with you, or maybe with you once. But
it was caregivers, Alzheimer's caregiver people.
well, these are right in the facility, right? There was one that
No,
you
I
went down.
wasn't
Natick.
Oh, I didn't do any of that.
Right.
We went to Natick.
Okay, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I did do the in-house one where we went, and I remember Orlando. What was his first name? The guy that was. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So I get down in there, and I'm in this room, and they're like, "Oh, how you dealing with your?" I was like, "He's dying. What do you want to tell you?
Yeah.
I'm here because I think that we need to make the facilities better for people." And like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you have this shit gray wall and fluorescent light. Can we open up the shades? Can we paint the walls like a nice color? And by the way, you have horses that are on the edge of your property, and I want to wheel my father out there. Can you put a clay path in? Oh, well, you're just acting because I'm like, no, I'm talking about practical stuff right now. It's not a lot of money. And what great excitement for family to have something to do by getting out a nice summer day or a spring day and wheel down the clay path to have, look at these horses. Didn't want to hear that. They didn't know. I was probably barred from going to others after that. At least that's my memory of it. But, again, there's a lot of things that, and I know this is, I've been reading, we've all been reading, that it's changing. There's more sunlight in these places, and, bring in flowers and bring in, Dad might have eaten them at the end of his life, but don't bring in poinsettias, bring in something that's edible. But, that's another part that needs to be dealt with more and more as time goes on. We're all getting there. Percentage-wise in this room, some of us are going to be in those facilities. I have a pact made with some of you know who Frank Armstrong is, that if he gets demented, I'm going to gas him in his garage. And if I get demented, I'm going to go to his garage and he gas me. But the sad thing is that we're chasing each other around every week, waiting to be gassed. So, you don't know, right? What's real? There might be some legal thing going on there. Yeah. So, it has its drawback. Other questions, other observations, yeah.
To me, it was something that I noticed, and it may not be the same for you because you were at both places, but it seemed like the nurse's station kind of reminded you of the playroom bar.
Very good point. You know, that might be absolutely true. It's central, it brought everybody back to that one spot. That's a very good observation. I'm gonna put that in my notes, and I really thank you and think that one through. Yeah. It's funny because I teach at Clark University. I've been there forever, and for 36 years, something like that now. And we're in, for me, a new building. Since 2002, we're in the old Downing Street School, if anybody knows Clark University, Worcester at all. And so when I was talking to the architects, this is about a station, and they said, "Oh, Stephen, we're designing you an office." I don't want an office. I said, I like to be out with my people, with my students. I want a nurse's station right in the middle of the room where I lock up my computer at the end of the day. And they could not get that into their heads. So when I moved in, and Bill, you've been down that space many a time, is that, you know, at least they put a window on the friggin' office door, but it's a storage room. That's all it is. And I literally went across campus to find a huge, what do they call it, cutting, the boards that are stacked together, cutting board, but it's
Butcher block?
But thank you, butcher block table that I literally went across campus in another building and wheeled across campus with 3 of my students. Campus police followed me all the way to my building. I'm not kidding you. And I brought it in and I set it up, and now, and Donna, right? It's like a nurse's station. Yeah. So that I'm there, and I have all these Christmas lights hanging and old cameras. If you have cameras that you want to give me, analog cameras, broke or not, I will take them. And I hang them on the ceiling so the students can cut them from the ceiling to play with. It's just a beautiful, safe environment. But it's a nurse's station, and I see my job central as a nurse to all of my students. And that's how I teach. I bring them into that space. It's very safe, and I can't light a fire in there, but I can have a shitload of Christmas lights all around me. And I have studio lights that have been donated. There's a lot of stuff donated. But there's something about that, something about central, about that safe space that you get, that central area where you go to ask specifics. How's she doing? How's he doing? What room is it? You go to that nurse's station to get the information. It's the core center to it all. Anything else?
Steve,
Yeah.
how often did you talk to your siblings and your mom about what you were feeling?
Did we ever have that conversation?
I don't think so.
So you did.
I don't think so. They did a lot of talking, but nothing about what was the incident and what was happening to their dad. Yeah. They stuck together like glue, which I was very proud of the 3 of them, because a lot of other families could not do that. Yeah. So I'm very proud of the 3 of them for doing that.
I thought about it
Yeah.
all the time. And Donna, even my own wife, just yesterday said to me, "Your mother's going to see this lecture. How do you think she'll really feel?" And I said, "Well, what's going to be new about this at all?" And because, you know, not the inner family, but our cousin Grace. Actually, you recorded this with the video camera.
Yes.
I do not approve of our cousin photographing Jean, my uncle, this way. He's exploiting the situation. No, she's in our age. She's 50-ish. So, and that's not, I've had that happen with a lot of people outside of the circle. Your father had no say in this. And I'm like, in the advanced stages, he had no say. But at the very, very beginning, Dad, something's wrong with you. I'm making this my job. Do you understand? Are you depressed? I'm not depressed. You seem depressed. Something's wrong. Let's see if I can figure it out through my camera. And so, of course, even that time, I think I have this thing called Alzheimer's. He did not tell me to leave. He was well within his means at that point to say we're not going to do this anymore. It was just because I've been photographing our family forever, since I was 10, 12 years old. 12, I think Dad finally said uncle, because he didn't want me to touch the camera, he wanted me an architect, right? But when I finally got one of his cameras, I never put it down. And so the camera is there to this day. I'm photographing us having, you know, dinners. I've got my little small camera there for those across the tables that you see now that I'm working out, which is a whole other psychological thing. You know, you see yeah. So that's, I'm always trying to work shit out in many different ways all at once. And so if something fails, I can pick something else up and try to narrate it in that particular way. So you all live in the world that everything is at 1,000th of a second. So these cameras shoot at 4,000th of a second. So very, very quickly, this is like this is a $3,500 camera. It sees in the dark. It's an amazing piece of technology. John, I'm going to bring you up. So 5 years ago, I got it at Guggenheim, like $50,000, and all I'm going to do is buy film. $50,000 worth of film and duct tape to keep my camera going. I don't want anything new. I just like working with the same stuff. But Donna said, you got to buy something. You have to buy something. So I'm like, yeah, you know, these boats are coming over from Sony in Japan. They're like, she said, buy one. And it's like, you know, $3,800 at that point. Okay, fine. So I bought this camera to do a very specific project. I won't go into it, but it didn't work out. So then my wife, which is true, she says, you know, we're never alone. We never go out to dinner alone. By the time we start at 12 noon, honey, let's go to dinner. By the time I get there, I get 20 friends with me. And it's just, you know, Harold, all you guys who are close, you know, laughing about that. Scott coming over to the salons, right? She's like, make them all go away. I can't do it, I can't. So Wednesday night, there's between 14 to 30 people in my kitchen. I've been doing this for 31 years. So I said to Donna,
Good girl, Donna.
I said to my wife, you know what? I got this new camera, all dressed, no place to go. I don't know what to do with it because this project didn't work out. When we go out, I'll take a picture of you. You take the camera and turn it at me, and you take 10, 20 photos of me. I'll pick it up, point it back at you. And then I brought the camera home, and on the Photoshop, I laid them all out, and I went, oh, you know what? Let's make sure that I prove that we ate at Coral Seafood in Worcester on such and such a date 5 years ago. And I just took them and I put them side by no Photoshop fancy thing. I just took one photo and another, and I just put them together, and then I titled it Coral Seafood, January 14, 2012, like this. Filed away, didn't think about it, so that I can get her. So the next time we go out to eat 2 weeks later and we don't have anybody with us, I can take 20 photos of her, 20 photos of me at Palmier Grill, put them together, file them. And then about a month later, I looked back at these photos. We're not looking at each other. We're looking at the friggin' photos. She's like reading the menu, or she's talking to the waiter, and like, you know, I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, we're really going out, but we're not even together in these photos. And then it hit me, oh my God, this is a narrative about a relationship. So then I extended it to everybody. Brother, sister, mom, Bill, you're in a whole shitload of them. You know, Harold Gordon, you know, people around this room. Elaine, and I would bring this, and we would pass the camera around the table. Everybody passed around the table taking pictures all night long. It's my friggin' idea. So even if it's their photos, and I put them together, and it creates the most earnest narrative you can imagine. And you see them, and you're on my Facebook, and I have 3 to 30 friggin' coffees with people a week, because I'm such a, you know, social person that I am. And now I have 5 years. I'm up to 475 officially that are working. That's the ones that are working. Times that times 3. That's how many I've made over the last 5 years. So that's a whole other level. You know, all these people that you know way back. It wasn't happening with G, but that's just about how I work on so many things at one time. So if something fails, I can pick it up and go someplace else. Keep running. Never stop. I've always had a fear since my childhood that when I stop, I'm going to die. And it's, you know, I mean, I have a history of, my mother's not depressed, but I have a history of depression. I'm one of those rare kind of extrovert depressed people that either I'm moving or I'm not moving at all. And when I'm not moving, sometimes it can go for days where I'm not moving. And I get in trouble with that. So but by moving and working it out through this therapy, I'm great. I'm even happy. But there's always that thing, you know, at one time in my 30s, it was like the boogeyman right over there across the street. It was tangible, it was right there. And it was always coming after me, but if I kept moving, it stayed there. Now as I'm finally in my, you know, late 50s and 60s, it's past the tracks. It's way out there now. I know it's there, and I can't be complacent about it. But I'm finally breathing, and I always tell myself, you know, I'm an artist, we're all like this. So as an artist teaching other young artists, and they're really depressed, the boogeyman is like right there. I know it is with them because we talk about this. And I have to say, look at this old geezer. It's going to be okay. Just keep working all your life, and you can keep pushing it out further and further. So again, all of the stuff, right, is all, and then you just keep making. So I have many different things. So if one gets stagnant, I can pick it up and not fail and stay still. So I don't know what that was all about. That wasn't dirty. So, yeah.
And you're so deeply involved in family, which I'm not. And if I were thrust into that situation, I'd be looking for film reference maybe, and I came up with Awakenings because
Oh, I know that movie, yeah.
I would be interested in how your father shifted his relationship with your family to how they dealt with his peers, so to speak. And you know, there's different levels of consciousness that you're witnessing.
Yeah.
Did that affect you? Did that give you any emotional sort of, was it hard for you to watch that, to let him go and
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna deny that. Yeah, absolutely. I could hide behind the camera to be tough enough to, well, even tough enough. It's like witnessing the slowest train wreck you can ever imagine. And, but the camera, like as I mentioned the word job, kept me going no matter what. And, so yeah, I mean, you know, very early, we always talk about, we talked about this coming down today about, you know, just where we see our father at different points in our lives, and he was not the most articulate person, but a very kind person. And that always came through. Got frustrated trying to communicate, but again, he always made up for it because he was a very loyal father. He was a really good father to all of us, taking you to hockey and working with you and working with me. He wasn't a deeply spiritual person, because the thing is that they made me go to church. I went to church as a kid. I hated going to church. I hated going to Catholic church. I would say why. She says, you can't ask the church questions. And I'm like, I'm going to ask them a lot of questions. They better have some answers because I don't get any of this shit. So, and she would say, how could you do that? And maybe even more defiance. And, you know, our father would take us to church. And then, at 60 years old, and Peter, you remember Jacob Knight, very famous artist. I don't know if anybody else remembers Jake. Jake was a very famous artist who lived out in West Brookfield. And I became very dear friends with him. I made him part of my life. I absorbed him into my life. And I photographed him over a number of years. I tend to photograph men to my fault. My mom is the first woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
that I've been, no, that's not true. Donna. But that's different. That's our own hyper reality.
Yeah.
That's when I'm photographing Donna, I'm photographing us both together. It's a unit. But your soul, you know, my mother. But okay, so 60 years old, and I'm driving Dad out to West Brookfield, and I said, Dad, you know, now that you're turning 60, you know, you must be thinking a little bit about the afterlife and, you know, death and how you're, you know, spiritually come. And he said, hey, you just turn into shit. You just become dusty and shit. I'm like, excuse me, what the fuck are you talking about? Wait a minute, hold it here. What are you talking about? I said, all those years you made me go to church, your mother made us go to church. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I can't believe you're telling me this right now. That was one of the biggest bubbles burst in my life. That he said that. It blew my mind.
Like Tony Soprano's mother. In the end, you die in your own arms.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. So I was hoping that he's my mentor. Tell me that you're spiritual. Show me the way. Show me these dimensions beyond. And it was just gone. He ended it in like a paragraph. It was like over with. In one paragraph. I had nowhere to go with that. So he never challenged that. Even you know, those days when he was still cognizant, when things were happening, we never went there. We never talked about it. He said a couple of things that he said that I thought were profound. In his advancing stages, he used to hang out with his friends after they retired a little bit. They would meet at some coffee shop or whatever towards Boston. That didn't last long at all, right?
No.
But, you know, he at one point, at maybe 62 or 63, he said to me, you know, my real family are the people that I worked with for 30-something years in the DPW. I was closer to them than I was with all of my family here. And I get that. I totally get that. Being a nurse, you know, the same thing. You got a family, and you come home to a family. You know, there you can, you know, with your peers, it's not the same bag. And I understood that. It's not the same baggage. You know, there's a reason why I adore teaching, because I get to pick my own children. And I have so many that are out there of 36 years that I still adore and follow. And they keep me alive and keep me young. And they keep me not so full of shit. That they kind of say it right and keep it all real for me. And so I desperately need my kids. He let go of all of that. He did have his yard and that topiary that you saw, and he was disciplined with that. But then as his life flickered, and got smaller, and we all know this, is that, he's the guy who would go up there, not with electric shears, that's cheating.
Yeah.
He went out there and he had the big clippers, and he had a level, and he would use strings, and but then as the Alzheimer's collapsed around him, he went to scissors. He'd go out there with scissors, little scissors, and cut with little scissors. And you could see the world just crumble. But again, there was nothing that offset that, nothing spiritual, nothing, an awakening of sense, like in that movie that pushed through to another level. And I don't know, I can't speak for all three of my family right here, but for me, it was the beginning of my awakening. Coming out of my 30s and my 40s, I'm not going to, 3 and 5. I shot 3,000 photos of my father, by the way, 3,000 and something and change. And there's a photo that when I turned 50, he's in his advanced stages, it's a shot where I set the camera up my shoulder and I'm saying, Dad, I'm 50, look what you've done to me. And he's like, what? I think I did 3 tries to get it right. Dad, I'm freaking 50, look at me. Is this what you expected to get? And it was a really powerful moment for me because he was not there. I was just kind of goofing with him about a moment. It's the other side of the century that it's downhill. It's no longer
There's a
uphill.
YouTube video of me videotaping you on the way to the nursing home, and I'm interviewing you.
And what was the video about?
It's just me going with you for the day.
Yeah.
With the video camera.
I remember the rain on the windshield, the whole
Yeah,
bit living in the
exactly.
house. And I'm just saying, I just go and
And
I
we
make
go into the
3,000
nursing home,
photos.
I go, what do you see today?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even to bring you in the conversation, and I think it was an awakening. I know it was for you as well. Is that it was incredibly difficult for you to go to the nursing home. Chris was like, I just so difficult to do this. And I got this video camera. It was just to shoot a project for the playwright, and it just didn't work out. So I had this $3,000 movie camera, and I said, Chris, let me give you something to do. And I handed you the camera, and I said, film me going to the nursing home. You're helping me to be there on time anyway. So, Wednesday afternoon I'll be there at 4:45, and my brother was waiting for me in the parking lot. How cool is that? That it gave him purpose. And so that he would follow me in the nursing home, and it was an amazing relationship that we both have. And I do have photos with him, the video camera reflected in those mirrors in the hallway and stuff like that. And we have hours and hours and hours of video, any of the video that I play back that needs to be somehow translated also into this project. But I don't know. Did I answer it a little bit here? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a family that's close, and so this is fascinating for me to know how you dealt with this.
Yeah.
And still, you're making art. And
Yeah.
did you have a frame of reference for your art? Did that even cross your mind, or were you so deeply embedded?
I know you work and respect you to the 10th degree, is that you make reference to art history every waking moment in your work.
Yeah.
And so we had a wonderful father that gave us culture. That's why I threw that in the very beginning.
Mhm.
So he exposed us to, I'm going to in Boston all the time. I went to the Science Center, 1967 World Fair, really. And so all these, did you go to New York? New York was always something we drove around.
Yeah, I know.
So, but we did stuff in New England and with different museums, and I adored these paintings. My father was a graphic artist, so my father was not deep about the work. He respected the work for its craftsmanship. And I learned that at a very early age. He taught me how to draw realistically. More than I was not a good painter, but draw. $5 a drawing at 14 years old was a big deal. In high school, I sold a painting for $410. The 10 was to pay for the stretchers. And and then my high school teacher took me into her office and said, "Who do you think you're going to be?" I mean, not kidding. It was one of those moments where I'm like, "What?" She's over there. You just sold this painting for how much? I said $410. And she's over there. What do you expect to be 5 years from now? I said, well, finishing college, probably teach at a university and make art for galleries, museums, and work on and all for the rest of my life. I'm a pretty boring guy. I knew what I wanted to do at 12. And she said, you will never ever do what you just said, because the odds is 1 in 3,000, and kid, you don't have it. And the thing is that Suli, and the thing is that I don't think she's in the art world at all anymore, because once people send some of your show announcements and museum announcements, and I'm like, no, it wouldn't matter. It mattered to me. It mattered. She was just angry because she was frustrated, and I didn't take it personal. But I also was a moment like, you better do what you just told me to do. You better do this. And there's these moments that come along. That was a moment of symbolism. Another moment of symbolism, or I should say messages, is from your sister, Grace. who, my mother and Grace, particularly Grace, was into palm reading. Did you ever do palms read? Like Aunt Grace? So Aunt Grace sat me down at 6 or 7 years old in our little breakfast area, and she said, "Oh, yeah, you're a procrastinator. You're not going to do anything in your life." And I'm like, "Excuse me? Yeah, your laziness is going to stop you from doing anything." And I thought right then and there, I'm not going to be lazy whatsoever for the rest of my life. Ever be lazy. That's that part of that. I started running at that point and never turning back. So that was another point.
I didn't know Aunt Grace did
Maybe
that.
Yeah,
that worked
yeah,
for
sure.
you.
Best
So
thing she
she
could've done.
follows this
God.
saying, "Well, no, I won't be lazy."
No, it was the best thing that could have
Yeah,
happened to
you
me.
rebelled against
So I
it.
rebelled, and I rebelled against my high school teacher. And then, for those of you, and Ann working at the Restaurant Museum, you're gonna love this one. So, I lost my way in Martha's Vineyard. I didn't know what to photograph anymore, and this was, about 16 years ago. I was photographing my father. It was taking up I only wanted to stay in the nursing home. And I was losing this. I was shooting jump, but I was losing it. And all my friends back, they're all like, "Oh yeah, here he goes," because they ought to put up with this shit. So, and I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I was in between living in like tiny apartments. Donna lived down there full time at one point and come down on weekends to stay the summer to photograph. We were living in the basement of a friend's house. I felt I had no voice whatsoever, but I knew the island. So now it's the end of August, 16 years ago, and I'm going to the beach one last time. And people say, "We heard you're not coming back." And I'm like, "Yeah, I have to get my life together, and I'll probably just make a book of what I have, since I already shot, like, whatever, 28, 15, 18 years already." And they're like, "But how, the beach won't be the same without you." It's like, "You'll survive." And so now I'm leaving the beach one last time, literally a half hour before we get on the ferry, and I run across Jim Willou,
Oh, wow.
the director of the Restaurant Museum. And I'm the youngest person to ever have a show at that museum back in the 80s. I had a show in 1986 documenting the mall. So a epiphany, a point in my life that also reinforced what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. The show went nowhere. The museum is going through a transition. Tom Freudenheim, who was an amazing director, discovered me as a kid. The new Regency comes in, and nothing against Jim. I love Jim, but Jim didn't get it. And so, as a guy in the 30, you don't celebrate this. You don't, even announce it. They gave me a $200 budget. So in Tom Freudenheim in Washington, down at the Smithsonian, says, "You can sue the museum," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna sue the museum." So I'm just gonna do the show to the best of my ability. So I'm now walking off the beach, and the curators there knew what I was doing. This was a pretty important work that I was shooting on the vineyard. I was getting awards, recognized shows in other small museums around New England, but not the Worcester Museum. I mailed them these little books, and I talked to David Acton. He says, "Oh, I just threw it in the trash. I thought that was like a show thing." And so I'm pissed. Jim Willou is walking on the pathway. Jim says, "Oh, hi, Stephen. Now you have to understand, I have 40 pounds of camera equipment over my shoulder, this black cloth." And he's like, "Oh, you're here in Martha's Vineyard?" And I'm like, "Yeah, come on, Martha. I've been here for decades working down here." And I said to him, "And I own the island."
That's sweet.
And I'm like, "Where did that come from?"